Hello, welcome to a video about the important astrological dates for the month of August 2023. I'm going to run down a bunch of dates. I'm probably going to do it really fast. I'll put chapter markers eventually down for you to jump forward. I'll have a couple graphics on screen. Some of this is structured. The other part of my brain is not structured, and we'll see what happens. So welcome to the channel. If you've never been here before, my name is Nicolas Polymonakos, aka Sparkles of Gold. And let's jump to the first date, August 1st. Here's the chart. It is the full moon that happens in Aquarius, 11:31 a.m. Pacific. I made a video about this specifically. If you haven't watched it yet, I'll put it up here. It's a lot of detail, actually, because on this particular full moon, and I will point it out super quick. You can go to the other video. Here we have the sun in Leo, the moon in Aquarius, 180 degrees away from each other. But the most important things you need to know are Mercury in Virgo across from Saturn and Pisces of having an opposition, and Mars in Virgo making an amazing connection with Jupiter in Taurus. Again, the video's up above there. That's how we start off the month, is with a full moon and with our mind tested basically in the sign of Virgo. But inherently, a full moon in Aquarius has to deal with our autonomy and a freedom of expression for both the Leos and for Aquarius. Now, let's get to August 6th. I want to bring up because there's a Sun square Jupiter aspect, and I will show you here. Hey, you're getting a sneak peek at something here. Let's go here to right there. Here is the 6th. We have Sun square Jupiter that happens on the weekend, the first weekend, you could say, of August on the Sunday. So I just want to point that out. Second, we get into August 9th, which I think is very important. And it's Venus square Uranus for the second time this summer. The first time this happened was actually on July 2nd. And now Venus is retrograde, and it's hitting and squaring off with Uranus again. Here we have a rambunctious shaking up of Venus's relationship world. We also deal with money and resources with Venus, and in a sense what we desire, what we crave and want in a sense too, especially Venus and Leo. But here's the second shakeup that happens, and this one is different because of Venus being backwards at this moment, heading towards a monumental moment. I will talk about another date here in the rest of the video, but here we get a clue back to some of the things there of the week of July 2nd. And you can just look at that part of your life if you have fixed signs. If you're, I always talk about this stuff, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. You have it at degrees, like 22 degrees. This is where this is happening. I'll show you the chart really quick on this one. And let me switch it up for you. Here is the chart at 4:08 a.m. on August 9th. We have Venus square Uranus, and I will make the connections for you. Here is Venus at 22 degrees, and here is Uranus at 22. If you're paying attention, the moon is there in Taurus, just passing the 22 degree point. And so another influx of electrical unpredictability in relationship worlds in the Leo part of your chart. In actually the Taurus part of your chart too, they are working with each other. It doesn't seem like they're working with each other, but Uranus is squaring Venus, Venus is squaring Uranus. They have this thing going on. Again, look for the clue for July 2nd. A different alternative way of dealing with relationships and the problems and the challenges that is coming up for Venus and Leo here. This is an actual tough one because of Venus going backwards. It might not have seemed as tough July 2nd, week of, but now it should be pretty obvious what has to be dealt with and what needs to be shaken up that is stagnant and not functioning and old for Venus and Leo. That happens on August 9th. I also want to point out on this chart something else that happens that day, and it's Mercury in, and let me point out with the annotator here, here's Mercury at 13 degrees in Virgo, getting close to Mars, as close as it can get to Mars. And then we have Jupiter in Taurus here at 14 degrees. We pretty much 13, 14, it's happening that day. This chart doesn't say it, but at 5:47 p.m. Pacific time, Mercury trines Jupiter in Taurus. We dig in this because it was not too long. If you could see this on the full moon that I started off this video with, and that I made a video about, that Mercury was across Saturn and Pisces and was getting blasted by a wall where it was stalemate, negative connotations, negative thinking, a way that Mercury in Virgo was not functioning on all cylinders because of Saturn being on the opposite. But here on the 9th, Jupiter elevates Mercury in Virgo, enhances the mind, inflates the mind in a good way, I think, here, where the mind, Mercury in Virgo's mind can push out and see all the details, like almost standing above a situation in a map and finding the points in the map of where to go, in what order, in order to get the accomplishment or goal done. Jupiter shows the whole picture here and enhances Mercury in Virgo's mind. So this happens on the same day as the Venus-Uranus square. That's Wednesday, August 9th. I would say, you watching this, is that pretty much that week on the August 9th, that is pretty much the peak of the week. We kind of go through to the 12th here, where we actually get to a place that I will show you here on my next image. Here's the 9th. I pointed out Venus square Uranus at 4:08 Pacific. Here, Mercury, Virgo, trine Jupiter. But then on the 12th there, which is a Saturday, we have the Sun trine Chiron here, which I just wanted to point out for those of you who are into the Chiron transit and Leo's Sun and Fire trining a Chiron in Aries. We want to make a note of this. That happens at a 11:12, if I'm correct, a.m. Pacific time. Great. Sure. The Sun vibing with Chiron. Not that big of a transit, right? But it is, because it's a precursor to what happens in the next 24 hours. And then what happens after that, 48 hours from Sun trine Chiron. And what that is, and let me bust a move here. I'm skipping around. You guys it's like you're seeing the future with astrology, aren't you? It's like you're seeing everything that you shouldn't see on this, but it shouldn't be a surprise. And I'm going to show you here what happens on the 13th. And it's the biggest day of the month, I think, along with, we have 3 lunations. We started off with the full moon on the 1st. We end the month on another full moon, and in between is a new moon. But what I think is the biggest transit of the month, the biggest day of the month, it has to do with Venus conjunct the Sun. Venus going into the heart of the Sun, a transit that many of us, including myself, have been waiting all year for. Here, it happens at 20 degrees. That happens at exactly 4:15 a.m. Venus pretty much moving backwards, goes into the Sun to be burned into its pure form. A death that happens here, a death and rebirth process, a slow rebirth process. I talked about this in my Venus in Leo retrograde video, which I will put that up here. You can go look at it. It's much more in detail, but I do want you to pay attention to this early morning. And if you're into acknowledging this, if you have anything in fixed signs that are as 20 or 18, 19, 20, 21 degrees, this is huge for you. If you have any planets there, if you're a Venus in Leo, this is can be, leading up to this, a difficult story. But if you were aware and watching this video, knowing that there's a death and rebirth process, by this point, hopefully from the end of July, when the retrograde, Venus retrograde started here into the first couple weeks of August, you pretty much know what needs to be let go of and to go through a recycling phase in the Leo part of your chart. For those of you who are more deeper inclined with ritual, it's up to you if you want to do anything in this early morning period of time. I do things on my own. I'm not going to tell you how to do things, But if you are, acknowledge it at least. And even for the rest of that day on Sunday, that an incredible, beautiful process happens. Again, it depends on the individual, but it could be easygoing and feel good, or it could be very difficult for some because of changes in relationship structures in the Leo part of one's chart. And if they have Venus in Leo, their Leo rising, Leo moon around these degrees, there's sometimes it's hard for a fixed sign to let go of something or to have a realization. But it's possible leading up to this August 13th on a Sunday. I started this part of the video talking about Sun, Trine, Chiron, and I think that helps before this. And I think we go into this part only to go into the next day, where it's interesting. On the 14th, the moon actually goes into Leo at 3:36 a.m. and at 7:54 a.m., Venus then coming out of the heart of the sun, and we can't see her in the sky, by the way, it's behind the sun, so it's not visible. But through that ritual, as soon as she's moving slowly out of there, she trines Chiron in Aries. And again, that happens at 7:54 a.m. on Pacific time on the 14th. So Chiron is kind of like in the beginning, during, and after this with Venus. And I think it's the sneaky transit of the month, this Venus-Chiron connections, that it's the second one, by the way, that Venus is having with Chiron. There was one before, and there's going to be another one. So here, I think what is hard to let go of and what is difficult, what is can be challenging, like I mentioned, and I'll go to the next day here and I'll show you the relationship, at least visually, that now Venus is here at 19 degrees, right? And then we go look to Chiron at 19 here, and there they are trining each other. In my other video, I mentioned that, and I'll put this up here too. I mentioned that Chiron, in a sense, is a guide for Venus here in the wounds that are having to let go of, and in a sense hands a potion over to Venus coming out of the underworld to in a sense, a rejuvenation, a healing potion that fills up all the hearts in your heart bar and gives a push to Venus and Leo, and an encouraging, fiery push that, in a sense, our wounds and our disconnected wounds that we are trying to incorporate into one within ourselves, the Aries part of one's chart, the Leo part of one's chart. Here, there's a solidification that goes on, and a potion and medicine, I think, in this story and in this process. So I'm going to cheat a little bit here. I'll do it this way. So you could see at August 12th, I had Venus and Leo conjunct the sun at 4:15 a.m. Right in the sun is Cazimi. I have, that date's wrong. It's actually the 13th that I have there. And then on the 14th, like I mentioned, I have the next day, Venus trine Chiron at 7:54. And then it's a couple days later that we actually have the new moon in Leo that happens at 2:38 a.m. And I will, let me see if I can get that chart for you up on the screen. And I'll keep this one up here for you. And we pretty much go into a power-packed week, 4 to 5 straight days of basically the heart of this Venus in Leo retrograde story for Leo people, Leo birthdays, anything in Leo. You are in this amazing week of transformation. So basically, this new moon comes in to give another third push to the Leo story to rejuvenate it. You can also see here on my graphic that Mars in Virgo is going to trine Uranus and Taurus within 4 hours-ish, a little less than that, at 6:53 a.m. I think that's huge. It's important here because of the Mars story going on. Pretty much it's Leo Virgo vibes in August, and we have finally a big, huge electrical, and I use that word with Uranus because it's kind of unstable, right? It's kind of has a wild feeling to it, and it's unpredictable, and it brings things out of the blue, and it's not normal. It wants to bring in something new and shake what's normal up. And here with Mars and Virgo on its interesting path, Uranus gives it a jolt, and one that it loves, another push, because it was not too long ago that Mars was opposite Saturn, right? And then Mercury was opposite Saturn in Virgo. Now Mars has another uplifting, a wild, ride the lightning type of energy that comes in on the same day. I'll bust a move here on the fly, and we'll just let's just go. We'll go to the 16th really quick to take a look at this. As a matter of fact, if you've never seen people work a program before, like I mean, I can do stuff like look up events and do stuff. I'll do it right here just so you can see what it is. We have a new moon right on the 16th. I'll calculate it. I go there, and here we are, and I'll show you right there. Here is 2:38 a.m. Here's the new moon. I will annotate it for those who like stuff like this, who's new. You'll see a 23 degrees Leo. You'll see the moon and the sun are conjunct together in the sky. And we just had Venus pass through this area. So Venus is along for the ride here on this new moon. And Chiron is there too. We also have, I think most importantly on this new moon, like I mentioned, is the Mars-Uranus connection. And here's Mars at 22, and here's Uranus 23, but it pretty much happens later within that day. And I think it's a solid background to all this. I think after coming through the weekend with the type of energy of a death and rebirth process and what's happening with Venus and the Leo story and a upcoming Mercury retrograde station, I like this particular new moon, and I like the energy behind it, and I like the feeling of someone breaking free or breaking open to, or something's cracked open in a positive way. You can look to the Leo part of your chart and look to the Virgo and Taurus part of your chart. Pretty much the Virgo part of one's chart and the Leo part of one's chart and the Taurus part of one's chart is pretty much in play for all of the month. These three spaces, these places have a lot of activity going through. Okay, so that happens on the 16th Pacific time. I will go to August 22nd. I will zoom through the chart here on the 22nd. I'll stop here because it doesn't like what I'm doing. Here's the 22nd here. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is now Venus, another more Venus story, is going to be squaring Jupiter in Taurus. So you could see now the Leo and Taurus parts of one's chart. And I'll show you here. Here is Venus now at 14 degrees, still going backwards, trying to get to a place of being morning star, by the way, eventually. And then we have Jupiter at 15 degrees, or it's that day we have the exact square. And I think, what did I say here? I said at 5:16 a.m. they square off. And here is another tough, I think, drama hit. And I think this has already happened once with Venus Jupiter, but here we have an inflated drama story coming out of that past week of the Cazimi and of the new moon. Here, things can still get inflated in a way where they get confusing, I think, and where things get overdone and established, over-pronounced, and in relationships can seem something's going on more than it actually is. That's one way to look at it. The other way is to feel that if it's a connective relational thing, that it might be too good to be true. And that's involved in here too with Jupiter, Venus, or there's a lot of spending going on with your money and resources. It's over the top spending, or resources kind of fall out the door, out of your pocket. These are the types of things that happen with Venus Jupiter squares. Whatever the case is, the energy is huge, Jupiter, and it gets philosophical, Jupiter, and there's a higher truth involved, Jupiter here, onto this Venus and Leo, who now is wanting to express herself in a different kind of way, but still not quite put together. That's still kind of raw out of its death and rebirth process, and Jupiter's magnifying this energy. So that happens on the 22nd. I also want to mention on this chart that later in the day at 1:33 p.m., it's just so wild. I just look when I was researching this, and a lot of you do astrology or looking, you see stuff like this, stuff that happens on multiple storylines on the same day. But the other thing that happens is Mars in Virgo, here we are in the Virgo part again, all right, is going to be opposing Neptune in Pisces, and we have an opposition going on here. And now part of the story, and this is in my Mars and Virgo video, I talk about this. At this point, Mars is dealt with Saturn and Jupiter, okay, and Uranus in a good way. But here now is across from Neptune, and now it's like it's been rocking and rolling since the beginning of the transit. Mars had some tough places. It couldn't move as fast as it wanted to, and here it hits Neptune. And this is on the same day that I mentioned here on the 22nd is Venus squaring Jupiter. And so Mars is lost here. Mars has a Neptunian filter on the opposite side, throws its detailed view and mission off course. And here's where the nervous system and the mind can get lost. Now, I'm a big proponent of finding oppositions in a creative way and using it in a creative way, as in using one side, in this case Neptune, in Pisces, and then we have Mars and Virgo on the other, and incorporating the two. In one way, though, way back when Mars in Virgo was opposite Saturn in Pisces, it was a frustrating 2 to 3 days. And I said in a video that if the two of Mars and Saturn can coexist and find a way of negotiating with each other, that Saturn gives structure to the Mars. And when Mars and Saturn get together, they have a type of energy that is steady and long-lasting. And here comes Neptune to mess with that long-lasting energy per se. But I think if you were to use Neptune with Mars here, that you could now, maybe it was a little too rigid with Saturn, and Neptune and Pisces kind of lets that rigidity kind of like dissolve a little bit and kind of give it a little bit of mutable, because they're in mutable signs, mutable flow. But you have to be conscious of this and not be lazy, because if one is just not together and still tries to, is trying to be push forward in a Mars way, almost aggressively through Virgo, I think here this is where Neptune could throw someone, or Mars in this case, off course, and things get completely lost, and it feels like everything that was done and built up in the Virgo type of way of building a system to attain that goal, and the little details all of a sudden crashes into nothing. It's like the water spills out. So you want to bring the two together. I'm long-winded about this, but I actually think if you bring the two together, that there's actually some inspiration here, some new something. There's a little bit of hope that is to be found, something else for the Mars and Virgo transit to understand, so it can keep moving forward, because it's about to make another huge connection with another planet down the line. So that is all on the 22nd, and I'll put this here up on the screen. Get rid of this. I'm not in the annotated mood, but I'll put it right there. So I said the 22nd, Venus and Leo square Jupiter and Taurus, Mars and Virgo opposing Neptune and Pisces at 1:33 p.m. And then we get to August 23rd, where Mercury in Virgo is slowly and gets to a place where it stops on the 23rd at 12:59 p.m. Pacific. And now for 3 weeks, Mercury in Virgo will be going backwards. Now, you see how the Virgo story here again is in play. Remember, the Leo part of your chart, the Virgo part of your chart, and the Taurus parts of your chart are where a lot of the action's happening. We could say some Pisces. I'm not going to really go there. I think these three signs and what they represent and where they are is where the action is. So that happens at 21 degrees Mercury in Virgo. The retrograde starts on the 23rd. We get to the 24th. And here we have the next Mars aspect that I was talking about. And this has to do with Mars now trining after its opposition with Neptune. Mars gets a super power-packed push with Pluto. And in another Earth sign, Capricorn, Virgo being an Earth sign, this is a super solidification that happens with a goal that Mars and Virgo has been trying to achieve, and a purified system that it's been trying to build. And Pluto retrograding in Capricorn helps Mars out here. They have a plan. When Mars and Pluto get together, no matter what, with an opposition it's a square. It's always intense. This is intense in a different way. I think it's super cool. I love this Mars and Virgo transit for the month. Go check out that video I'm talking about. But here on the 24th, Pluto comes in to give some secret power to Mars and Virgo to get the rest of the job done that Mars has been trying to do in the sign of Virgo. And that happens 5:23 p.m. Pacific at 27 degrees. We go to the 27th, as I have here on screen. And I'm going to say something after this that I passed over, but I'll get to it because I don't want to forget something here. But on the 27th, we have Sun in Virgo. The Sun in its annual opposition with Saturn in Pisces. Now you know why I'm bringing up more Virgo thing. If someone here has early Virgo birthdays, this is a big deal because Saturn's opposite your world. You Virgos, get a hold of me for a reading if you want, because having Saturn opposite your world is an identity change, identity crisis. Everything can seem to be changing in one's life, especially for Virgos who are born between the first 0 degree to like 6 or 7 degrees. I think you're up on stage and you've been feeling it here this year already. So that happens there on the 27th. And on the same day, Mars then leaves Virgo and goes into Libra at 6:19 a.m. on the 22nd, which will be a huge transit down the line that has to do with eclipses, that has to do with Pluto, and so on and so forth. And that will be for another video. When we get to the 28th, and I'll put this other graphic on screen because I'm just doing it this way. I had another setup here. But on the 28th, we have Uranus now in Taurus is going to station retrograde to go backwards for months. And that happens at 7:38 p.m. And then we get to the 30th, where we have the rare occasion where we have 2 full moons in a month. We had the first one on August 1st, and then we have the second one on the last day of August, a full moon in Pisces at 6:35 p.m. Pacific at 7 degrees. And that happens on the last day. What can I say about this particular month in general? As I, went through a lot of the stuff, I didn't use all my charts, but I just wanted to give you a quick something. But what I would say here is, most importantly, is don't forget the 13th with Venus and the Sun, Cazimi, the conjunction that happens in Leo. Also get it in your head that Mercury is going to go backwards. Uranus is going to go backwards at the end of the month, but I think the more obvious things that you might see are the Mercury retrograde station that happens on the 23rd. But pretty much you see the story in the flow that inherently in all this, Mars in Virgo, Venus in Leo, they're at the heart of everything here. And it shouldn't be a surprise that it's a Mars and Venus story in the end, because it has been for the last several years, because we had the eclipses in North Node Taurus, in South Node Scorpio. The nodes have changed now. Now the North Node is in Aries, South Node Libra, Libra ruled by Venus, Aries ruled by Mars. Pluto's squaring the nodes right now, but inherently we're looking at the players this month, and again, it's Mars and Venus. I wish there was a situation where Mars and Venus were connecting this month together, but that is somewhere later. But this is a setup for that. But inherently, when you're seeing if you're affected by this in your chart in the month of August, remember that you have a death and rebirth story through it all, and to embrace that process if you can. Personally, I think that this month is the biggest month of the year transit-wise. There's other things that happened earlier this year, Pluto going into Aquarius, now it's retrograde. There's all that stuff. I think Pluto's secretly in the back through the whole thing the rest of the year. But I think this month is the biggest one because of the types of shifts that are happening with Mars and Venus, and how Mars and Venus are connecting to other planetary bodies and, in a sense, being influenced and spiced up and colored by the other planetary bodies. And those other outer bodies, especially like Pluto, Uranus, and Jupiter, Saturn, they alter the course and direction of a smaller planet like Venus and Mars. They're all significant. But when you have these amount of combinations and these amount of aspects for the month, change is inevitable. So embrace that change and embrace it immediately. There's a lot of times where we wait for something to happen. This isn't the time. Understand the change that you see in front of you and just go with it. And no matter how difficult it is, use your tools, use your insight with astrology, whatever modalities. Get a reading with me or wherever your favorite person is. You feel what I'm saying. I love this month no matter how difficult it could be, whether it's for myself or anybody else. And I wish every single one of you watching the connection to nature and the universe, that you find it in your way this month and utilize these amazing transits that are happening and what is given to us by the universe every single moment of our lives. That things are sacred and ritualistic at all times, and it's okay to live that way, and it's okay to think that way, and it's also okay to follow the cookie crumbs that appear in front of you. So that is my relaxed, off-the-cuff August dates, astrological dates. I have more videos coming up. I got a podcast that I'm about to put up here in a week with a certain astrologer, 3 Questions podcast. You could check out my last live stream. I did 2 live streams, one weird one with my music, but I did one several weeks ago where people call in and they give me their chart data, and I do their chart live on air. You can go look at all my stuff. If you are a first-timer here and you made it this far, thank you. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, so when I do my surprise live streams, you're there. And I'll see all of you on the other side.